Which job is a lot less fun than most people expect? Video game tester. You aren't spending your time playing completed fully realized games. You are playing the same level of a game over, and overseeing if there are bugs. Also, you are probably not going to test the next GTA, but something like Barbie's Super Happy Funland 3, or some other game aimed for kids 8 and under. And you'll have to play it for 8 to 10 hours a day, every day. Cue gunshot to head. I don't remember that part in Barbie's Super Funland 3. Even when you're playing completed games and working on a game you'd want to play, it can be a grind. Example. During my cert pass for PlayStation on Hand of Fate 2, I had to plug and unplug a USB headset during every scene, and transition to ensure it didn't break audio or crash the game. It took me 5 hours. I had a friend who got a job as a tester at Activision. They had him testing interactive Disney storybooks. I have a coworker who used to work at Activision programming those interactive Disney storybooks. He always said the work was fine, but he hated the people he worked with. So I'm guessing your coworker and their friend hated each other? Creators do work with testers. Testers are usually contract employees and can only work for like 9 months at a time, so the company doesn't have to pay benefits. Yes, I know you're joking. Wow, that is an evil strategy. Perfect for Disney though. My buddy runs a game testing consulting firm. Has about 100 game testers employed. He employs them as permanent, full-time staff, and they just get moved from project to project as required. They get benefits and are paid very well. And he, as owner, is making bank. I got offered a job as a game tester at Activision and I turned it down. And I know at some point I'm gonna have a kid, and I'm going to tell them that I had an offer to be a video game tester as a job, and I didn't take it. And then they are going to spend a significant portion of their life thinking their dad is an idiot. Which is true, but for much different reasons. I think I made the right choice. The pay was less than I was worth, tons of OT, didn't seem to lead anywhere, and it was a pretty shitty commute. Let's see if I can clip through this wall for the 20th time. Nope. What a surprise. Oh, the developers released a new patch and they want a full retest? Gotta start all over. Any good QA professional knows there is no such thing as a full retest. You can never test all scenarios. Not really stupidity. People will always break things in ways QA didn't test for because there are always way more people testing the game once it launches versus QA testers being paid. A million people running around a section of map doing damn near every possible combination of things versus a handful of dudes testing mostly specific things. In my experience as a SE, I've tried many times to look for every singable case scenario, and there is always one way regular customers break shit. Always. That's why when I test, I do 4 basic strategies: test the acceptance criteria, test upstream/downstream, test edge cases, and then test like I'm my mom and using it. They already do, except it doesn't do much good. Collision are a calculation between 2 meshes with complex geometries, and it's already done by the engine. There will be unit test to prove the collision works. Clips happen when the user does something unexpected to bypass this collision. Maybe they hit the mesh fast enough to slip between the Collison box during its frame calculation. The meshes might rebound the player, and in just the right circumstance they get pushed through another mesh. They might ram into it with a held object like a bucket which tricks the camera, or bind jump to scroll wheel to overload input buffers and climb over collision boxes. Video game testing is like prostitution. It's doing something you love in the least fun way possible. Sure, some days it can be great and just like the real thing, but most days it's a huge pain in the ass. Absolutely. My pal Carl did it for a year and he played games like Arkham Knight and he absolutely hated the job. Wore his love of gaming down to nothing. He quit, gifted me all his game systems, and moved to Sweden. What does he do in Sweden? I had to scroll through that whole part so fast, lol. I'll never look at sea otters the same. I always have this cynical feeling I'm sometimes a little uncomfortable with, whenever I hear someone want to make a job out of something they like as a teenager, like video games, music, or sports. Maybe I'm disillusioned with capitalism and maybe it made me overly traditionalist in that regard, but I always get this feeling where I'm like, bro, maybe don't bank your entire future on how well your enjoyment of this thing will translate into work life, when it comes to how fun it actually is and how easily you can find a job. I'm struggling to find a healthy medium with this feeling, like obviously it's miles better to work in what you love, but I also get the sad feeling that enthusiasm and a stable work life don't usually have much crossover. But if you see yourself a future in your passion, more power to you. Maybe I'm biased by liking what some would view as a traditional job, and am too afraid of not having a path that's clearly defined by society. This is exactly what I've been doing for my life. I've always had a knack for computers, so I now work in system administration. I loved art and game design and mountain biking and 3D printing. Tried doing commission art for a year and my love for it just kinda died. Ever since I've forced myself to keep what I love and what makes money separate. I've had to test for my own bugs before. No thanks. I think I'd kill myself if I had to test Barbie Funhouse level 6 over and over and over. Hell, I think I'd lose my shit if I had to test a AAA game like Fallout. I'm a dude that can take a decent amount of tedious bullshit at work, but being a game tester? Hell no. Bro, testing those games was actually the best. They are simple, easy, straightforward, with no stupid bullshit. Plus, you get to do it alongside all your buddies and mock it all day. Viva Pinata was probably the best week of my tenure as an MS Cert tester, that or the week where we watched Tangled and that really shitty rock movie with steel plate back to back 4 days in a row. So, wait, you're telling me that you can use a copy of Skyrim to identify when your Xbox 360 is about to shit the bed? Okay. This is genuinely the most amazing thing I've heard in game development, and I've done some extremely stupid shit. I've been in software QA since '98. I was offered a QA manager role for a game shop. Would have had to relocate to a more expensive place, work at least 50% more, and take a 60% pay cut. No thanks, I'll stick with financial and insurance field software. Seriously, people don't get how lovely working B2B boring software is. I'm a product manager and I love my life in B2B, significantly fewer crazy people in my user interviews. People aren't all screaming about trying to be the next Slack and people aren't living their jobs. It's lovely. I've been in QA for a decade, and in software QA for 7 years of that, and not a week goes by I don't get an offer to leave my salaried, full-time position for some shit 3-month contract testing the latest and greatest games from a top developer where I can get such amazing benefits as minimum wage, no health insurance. Maybe we'll hire you full-time. No, we won't. LinkedIn is bullshit. I'm a digital product manager and I get that too. My email is full of offers to abandon my career and take a 6-month contracted gig as a visual designer in Boise, Idaho, with no PTO and no benefits. Same here. Been in QA for 20 years, all in finance and insurance. When I realized that I get benefits and good pay, I'll just stick to playing games at home on my free time. In pretty much every field, QA is a thankless job. The top people often see it as a cost and not a profit center, so they try to pay as little as possible. Only one company I worked for really valued QA. So much so that they redid the entire building and made it into a showcase. And they used it to great effect. Anytime there was a potential big client, they would be brought through and shown all the QA testing areas, hardware, software, RF emissions, etc. It worked well, they got lots of big contacts and often had few quality issues, which saved a ton on support calls, few recalls and in general very happy customers. I always thought that would be the coolest job growing up. Thinking about it as an adult, it's probably pretty frustrating. I did testing. It was great. Looking for all the possible ways to break a game. I also really loved writing up the bugs I found, and capturing video of the bugs. The part one didn't like? When I submit a bug report and the developers close it out with the note feature. That means they aren't gonna fix it. I started as a video game tester at a big company 20 years ago. I loved it. I was working on a franchise that I grew up playing with a great group of guys, they were all guys back then. From there I went on to managing QA teams, development director, PMO, and now analytics manager. 20 years later I am still in the industry. I love my job, but, while it's much more money, it's much more stress than the carefree QA days. I figured this out testing games I was making. Tedious AF, but even one good QA person makes a big difference. I play tested a racing game a friend of mine was developing. It was literally just driving into every single inch of wall to make sure I couldn't glitch through it. Just hours and hours of driving into walls. Not like going fast and trying to crash, no, that would be too fun. Just gently nudging walls.